and numerous co-conspirators of foreign fighters from Syria can do something like that, and it's completely under the radar screen. We know why it went undetected. It went undetected because they were communicating in the dark space, in a space that we can't shine a light on to see these communications, even if we have a court order. We must solve this problem. And I agree with you, it's not an easy one to solve. And I've sat down with top experts like Keith Alexander, one of the brightest minds on this issue. But I do believe that the first step is getting them, forcing them to get together in the same room to work out these differences and find a solution. Now, I can't say that I have all the solutions to the problem, but I know that the experts know how to get there. And I think that's what this legislation will provide.
Next question, gentlemen.
Hello, David Smith of The Guardian. Just a couple of questions. You mentioned new evidence about people with ties to ISIS trying to enter the U.S. Through the refugee program. Do you have any further detail on that? And the second question is, would you categorically rule out sending in a major ground force in Iraq and Syria, or is that debate worth really?
Well, these are two different issues. The refugee crisis is a symptom of a larger problem. The root cause of the problem is the civil war in Syria and the creation of ISIS after the lack of leadership in having a status of forces agreement and failure to engage Maliki in any political dialogue, and thereby disenfranchising the Sunni tribes even more. So they had a choice between Maliki and ISIS. Most of them chose ISIS, and we saw them drop their weapons in Mosul because they didn't want to fight ISIS. The refugee problem is just a symptom of that. We were briefed earlier this week by the intelligence community, and I don't want to get into specifics to protect my sources, but by the intelligence community that, in fact, Syrians, ISIS members in Syria have attempted to exploit it to get into the United States. That was very courageous for them to come forward with this, to tell me about this personally, given the political debate on the Hill with the Syrian refugee bill. But I think it demonstrates why that bill is so important. If we have direct evidence and intelligence that they, not only to infiltrate Europe, which is easier to do, but to infiltrate it to get into the United States, to me that's very disturbing. We won't resolve the problem of the refugee crisis until we deal with, when I talk to the Sunni Arab nations, and they to know that we have a strategy. They say, Mr. Chairman, we'll put a ground force in, the Turks, Jordanians, Saudi. They'll put a ground force in, but they want assurances we have a military objective and that Assad has to be a part of the solution. And the political situation has to be resolved on the ground. And until we have that strategy, we're going to continue to have this problem. I also urge the Gulf states to take these refugees. So all these ambassadors agreed that a protected zone, if you will, in Syria through a no-fly was the best way to deal with the refugees so they don't leave Syria. A refugee, by definition, is somebody that wants to go back to their country. If they come to Europe or the United States, they'll never return.